Why are you here? Is it to better cope with stress? Is it to improve academic or work success? Is it to help yourself or another person deal with a difficult challenge? Or perhaps you're just curious about this thing called resilience. Let's begin with a workable goal and some definitions. Our challenge and goal is you as a mentor of resilience. A mentor is a person who helps guide a less knowledgeable person, and resilience is the development and use of skills to manage stress in an optimal way. So the goal is to develop personal resilience and share this with our support system. To meet this goal of making you a mentor of resilience, we will look at 4 steps. We will look at why we need to be resilient, look at some protective factors with dealing with stress, and find ways to better deal with the stresses and challenges of life. It's important that we learn to deal with these stresses and challenges because, in the extreme, the consequences are devastating. Every 40 seconds, a person completes suicide, and it's estimated there are some 20 attempted suicides for every completed suicide. What does this statistic really look like? Well, for example, in the United States, suicide is the second leading cause of death for 10 to 34-year-olds. And the United States is not unique to these statistics. They're fairly consistent with suicide worldwide. So what puts us at risk? There are environmental risks, such as disaster, discrimination, sense of isolation, abuse, violence, conflictual relationships. And there are individual risks, such as mental health disorders, PTSD, for example, alcohol, chronic pain. And there are professional risks, because suicide is problematic across many professions. For example, in the caregiver community, from first responders to physicians. So then, what helps protect us from these risks? The World Health Organization 2014 publication on preventing suicide is a summary of the research related to suicide and suicide prevention. Now, the World Health Organization advocates for resilience at individual and community levels. They look at protective factors relative to risk factors. Protective factors are development and sustainment of social support systems. Spirituality is an access to a supportive community with a shared set of positive values. And lifestyle practices of positive coping strategies, good self-esteem, self-efficacy, and effective problem-solving skills. This includes the ability to reach out and find help. Let's look first and probably at the most important protective factor, a social support system. We will define social support system as 2 or more people who can work together to solve a challenge. And we call it a system because each person has a specific role to play to help solve the challenge. That means when you encounter a difficult challenge, the people you may want to have in your system are those that have the skills or qualities you need to effectively deal with a challenge. Next, we have resilience. We use the term positive coping skills because our intent is to take a personal challenge and create a more positive and less stressful outcome. These skills that make us resilient are representative of evidence-based research. 2 other protective factors are those of self-esteem and self-efficacy. Now, most of us have heard that term self-esteem, but self-efficacy may be new. We will define self-efficacy as a belief one is capable of reaching a goal. Finally, having effective problem-solving skills is a protective factor. We will define this as methods of finding solutions to problems or challenges. These recommendations from the World Health Organization form the basis for our learning as we examine 5 skills to help make us resilient and better able to deal with stressful situations. We title these skills Belief, Persistence, Strength, Trust, and Adaptability for our learning. They serve as a personal protective factor and help us sustain our social support systems. The way I perceive things is shaped by my beliefs. That means that my beliefs control my actions and my attitude. My attitude is the way I feel about something. If my attitude is not good, then I may need to examine the belief. I look for a more positive belief. Changing a belief that may be self-defeating is not always easy. I may need to persist in my thinking to bring about a more positive belief. Yes, I said persist. That's the next skill, persistence, followed by strength, the physical part of resilience that includes diet, exercise, relaxation, and sleep. Then trust, the skill of reaching out and developing and keeping a social support system. And lastly, adaptability, that we remember it's not the strongest nor the fastest, but the most adaptable that thrive.